In a quiet cul-de-sac outside Charlotte, North Carolina, there is a man named Daniel Mehra. He is 73 years old. He came to the United States in 1968 with a single suitcase and a degree in electrical engineering. He still wakes before sunrise. He still works in his garden every morning. He still carries grocery bags up 2 flights of stairs without getting winded. His blood pressure is normal. His grip strength ranks among the highest for men his age. His libido, by his own quiet admission to his American physician last year, feels no different than it did in his 30s. His doctor asked him what supplements he takes. Daniel laughed at the question. He takes nothing his pharmacy would recognize. But every morning, after his coffee and before his first meal, he stirs a spoonful of a brown powder into a glass of warm milk and drinks it down. He has been doing this since he was 19 years old. His grandfather handed him a jar of the powder the day before he left for America with one instructee: on. Keep taking it every morning for the rest of your life. Daniel never stopped. The powder comes from a small, unimpressive plant. It is bitter. It carries the faint smell of dry hay and earth. And according to a growing body of clinical research emerging from universities across India, Europe, and the United States, it may be one of the most consistently effective natural supports ever studied for testosterone, recovery, and stress resilience in older men. But what makes this story unusual is not that an immigrant family quietly carried this tradition into America decades ago. What makes it unusual is who else takes it every single day. Some of the most elite, rigorously drug-tested natural bodybuilders in the world rely on this same herb. Men who cannot, by the rules of their sport, touch synthetic testosterone or anabolic steroids without risking everything they have built. Men whose physiques depend entirely on training, nutrition, recovery, and whatever legal natural compound they can use to support performance. These men take the same herb, and so do many of the scientists who study them. For the next several minutes, we are going to walk through exactly what this herb is, what modern research says it may do for testosterone and stress hormones in men over 60, which natural bodybuilders openly use it, and how a man your age should actually take it if he wants the kind of results that have quietly made this herb one of the most respected tools in the natural strength community. But before we name it, you need to understand why it stayed hidden from mainstream Western health conversations for so long. In Sanskrit, the name of this herb translates loosely to smell of horse. This is not merely a reference to its odor, though the dried root does carry a barnyard scent. The name points towards something older. For more than 3,000 years, Ayurvedic physicians believed that consuming this root could pass along the strength, vitality, endurance, and virility. Why associated with a powerful stallion? Those ancient healers had no access to hormone panels or clinical laboratories. They did not measure serum testosterone, salivary cortisol, or DHEAs. They observed. They watched men over decades, and they wrote down what they saw. What they described was striking. Men who used this herb consistently into their 70s and 80s often appeared to retain qualities many other men gradually lost. Their muscles remained firmer. Their minds stayed sharper. Their sexual function persisted. They slept deeply and woke with energy. When British colonial physicians first encountered this herb centuries ago, they dismissed it as folk medicine. They had no framework for understanding adaptogens, no language for describing the relationship between chronic stress and hormonal decline. They did not know what cortisol was or how long-term stress could influence testosterone production. And so the knowledge remained largely outside mainstream Western medicine while families like Daniel's quietly continued using the herb in kitchens across America. Meanwhile, most men simply aged the way American men often do, quickly, roughly, and with a sense of inevitability they rarely questioned. Then something changed. By the late 20th century, researchers at major universities began putting this herb through the kind of testing modern medicine respects most: double-blind trials, placebo-controlled studies, peer-reviewed publication, real clinical science. And the findings, beginning in the early 2000s and growing dramatically over the last 15 years, became difficult to ignore. But long before headlines or journal reviews began paying attention, another group of men had already discovered its value: natural bodybuilders. In professional natural bodybuilding, the rules are unforgiving. No anabolic steroids, no synthetic testosterone, no growth hormone, no pro-hormones. Athletes face polygraph testing, urine screening, and in some organizations, even random blood analysis. A positive result can destroy years of work and permanently stain a reputation. These athletes train just as brutally as enhanced competitors. They diet with the same discipline. They follow strict sleep schedules and relentless programming. The difference is that they must build everything naturally. That necessity has created a fascinating culture. Natural bodybuilders have become some of the most sophisticated self-experimenters in modern sports science. They track recovery, performance, sleep, stress, hormone health, and training adaptation with remarkable precision because if something does not work, their bodies reveal the truth quickly. And among these athletes, one herb appears again and again. The herb is called Ashwagandha. Its botanical name is Withania somnifera. In some traditions, it is called Indian ginseng, though it shares no botanical relationship with Asian ginseng. In others, it is known as winter cherry. Inside the root are natu, rally-occurring compounds called withanolides. These compounds are believed to drive many of the physiological effects that have attracted researchers worldwide. Ashwagandha belongs to a class of plants known as adaptogens. Adaptogens are believed to help the body adapt to physical, emotional, and hormonal stress. And stress, especially in older men, is one of the most underestimated drivers of hormonal decline. Chronic stress raises cortisol. Elevated cortisol suppresses testosterone production. Over years and decades, that cycle compounds itself until many men no longer recognize the energy, resilience, or drive they once had. Ashwagandha appears to influence that cycle, and this is where the science becomes especially interesting. Now let's look at what the clinical research actually shows. In 2015, a research team led by Dr. Arun Malhotra published a study in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition. They took healthy adult males and split them into two groups. One group received a standardized ashwagandha root extract twice daily. The other group received a placebo. Both groups followed the same resistance training program for 8 weeks. At the end of the study, the differences were measurable. The group taking ashwagandha showed a significant increase in serum testosterone compared to placebo. They also demonstrated greater improvements in strength, including bench press performance, and larger gains in muscle size across multiple measurements. Recovery markers also improved, suggesting reduced exercise-induced muscle damage. Same training, same diet, same environment. The only difference was the herb. In 2019, another major randomized double-blind placebo-controlled study was conducted on men aged 40 to 70. These were not athletes. They were everyday aging men reporting fatigue, low energy, and reduced well-being. Over the course of the study, participants taking a standardized ashwagandha extract showed improvements in perception, energy, stress levels, and overall vitality. Hormonal markers shifted as well, including cortisol reduction and improved testosterone to cortisol balance, which is often considered a key indicator of aging-related hormonal health. In a more recent scientific review published in the last few years, exercise and nutrition researchers analyzed decades of ashwagandha data. Their conclusion was consistent. While it is not a synthetic hormone or drug, it appears to produce meaningful effects on stress reduction, recovery, strength performance, and modest improvements in testosterone, especially in individuals under chronic stress. This is no longer traditional folklore. It is reproducible clinical research. And then there is real-world validation. Across the natural bodybuilding community, ashwagandha is one of the most commonly used adaptogens. Athletes in drug-tested federations where performance-enhancing drugs are strictly prohibited frequently included in their supplement stacks alongside creatine, protein, and basic micronutrients. Some have publicly discussed its role in managing cortisol during contest preparation, when calorie restriction, intense training, and psychological stress typically cause hormonal strain. Exercise scientists who work closely with these athletes have also acknowledged its role as a supportive supplement for recovery and stress management, especially during high-volume training phases. What makes this interesting is not marketing or hype, but consistency. Independent groups, researchers, athletes, and clinicians keep arriving at similar observations from different directions. Now the practical question becomes, how is it actually used? Not all ashwagandha is the same. Traditional raw root powder varies widely in potency depending on cultivation, harvesting, and processing. That means two different batches can have very different concentrations of active compounds. Modern research typically uses standardized extracts, or the active weight. Ethanolide content is controlled and consistent. One of the most studied forms is a full-spectrum root extract standardized for withanolides. Another highly researched extract provides a defined concentration of withanolide glycosides. Both are used in clinical trials. For men over 60, most studies fall within a daily range of approximately 300 to 600 milligrams of standardized extract. Some protocols divide the dose into morning and evening servings. Others take the full amount in the evening due to ashwagandha's association with improved sleep quality and deeper rest. Effects are not immediate. This is not a stimulant. It does not create a sudden surge in energy or strength. Instead, it works gradually through stress modulation and hormonal balance. Most studies suggest early changes in sleep quality and stress perception within the first 2 weeks. By weeks 4 to 6, many participants report improved energy stability, reduced anxiety, and better recovery from physical exertion. Why 8 to 12 weeks, measurable changes in strength, body composition, and hormonal markers tend to become more apparent in responsive individuals, particularly those starting from a state of elevated stress. But responses vary. Men with higher baseline stress and poor sleep often experience more noticeable benefits. Men who already have low stress and strong recovery habits may see more subtle changes. It is also important to understand safety. Ashwagandha is generally well tolerated in most clinical studies, but it is not universally appropriate. Individuals taking thyroid medication should consult a physician before use, as it may influence thyroid hormone activity. Those using sedatives, blood pressure medication, or immunosuppressants should also seek medical advice due to potential interactions. People with autoimmune conditions are often advised to use caution, and anyone with pre-existing liver issues should only consider it under medical supervision. This is not a miracle compound. It is not a replacement for training, nutrition, sleep, or medical care. But within the context of overall lifestyle, it has demonstrated measurable effects in controlled research. For decades, this herb existed in two worlds. In one world, it was part of ancient traditional medicine, passed down quietly through generations. In another, it was ignored by mainstream Western health systems. Today, it sits somewhere in between, studied in laboratories, used by athletes, discussed by researchers, and slowly being reevaluated by modern medicine. The question now is no longer whether it exists in research. The question is how much of its potential is meaningful for the average aging man trying to maintain strength, energy, and vitality. And that answer is still being explored. But the data so far suggests it is far more than just folklore. It is a biologically active herb with measurable effects on stress physiology, recovery, and hormonal balance. And for many men, that alone makes. Is it worth understanding?